I like this sometimes. I usually hear it as a drum beat, but sometimes I think that you forget, like in a way, a tambourine is like a party instrument, right? It kind of like you can kind of do tambourine sounds to anything, you kind of can bring them with you, and it's easy um sometimes to forget that there's kind of the potential of a tambourine playing at any moment, right? That there could be that kind of accompaniment of a tambourine. And a lot of times I feel something similar. And this song is pretty intense, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that Bob Dylan's lyrics are pretty intense. There's a reason why he won the Nobel Prize, right? And I don't know if any of you saw the movie The Complete Unknown, but it really's got me like rediving into some of his lyrics, right? And Mr. Tambourine Man's interesting. You should sometime I mean, we could have whole meetings, like team adaptable meetings over the lyrics of songs, just so you know. Like there are a lot of things going on. But there's something about that song. I kind of imagine Bob Dylan as a young guy. It's me imagining, right? Like coming up and kind of being lost. It's late at night. He doesn't know, doesn't has no place to go, and all of a sudden he sees the tambourine man playing, and he hears a song and he's going, hey, I'll follow you even into the morning. I'll follow you the next day. And if you listen to the song, it's kind of like he's a little bit lost, but the tambourine man's playing. And I tend to think of the contrast to be even more stark, that I imagine the tambourine player might be a homeless person playing for money to be carried by to be helped by the society. And he's sitting there down in the 60s thinking about greens and you know through the smoke rings of my mind. You should listen to some of the, because Bob Dylan was quite a smoker, right? So, so a lot of times I think about yoga, the potential of yoga, even when I'm sitting in the middle of a day that's being frustrating or whatever. I used to say this when I used to help people in workplaces and in healthcare to be to utilize their body in the stressful spaces, right? There's nothing like mental stress to be that to erode at your sense of compassion and and openness, right? It that erodes our connection between people. So I would try to like have people in meetings and in with a really difficult patient, let's say if they were a nurse or something, to like put their in the middle of something going on, put their lips together, teeth slightly apart, and feel and soften the inside of their mouth in the middle of what was occurring, like a tambourine playing, that it's always there. And that's why, I joke around like one of the my it's not a joke. One of my favorite things about yoga is that it goes with me everywhere. There isn't one single context that isn't where a different type of awareness isn't available, no matter what's occurring. One of the things that I've been trying to get across to you for a long time, and maybe with all my teaching and what I try to share, it's more of a sharing, is that often like calming the mind down and getting more quiet is can be easily, and not wrongfully, but can be easily seen as like a withdraw or a deadening. And I mean that in a good way. Like instead of being all agitated, right, and worried about this and worried about your next minute or your next hour or your next day, you get kind of, you could call that the present, right? Without an overactive mind, but it's kind of a well, like a downshift. And part of what's at every time we do centering, I'm often trying to get across to you that that energy that you get when you actually allow what's happening to be in your mind, not to be too overactive and judging your experience and overlooking it and passing it by, right? That energy is not like deadening and a withdraw. It's actually alivening. It doesn't make you want to jump up necessarily and do jumping jacks. But if you can get to that roof and then start from there to expand, to include that energy that could be thought to be a centering compression, and it is also as a tambourine, right? It's an energy that waits for you to figure out what you're going to do with it. All right, so one of the things that is predicated, or the whole, approach to adaptive yoga that I've tried to like kind of delineate and share, is based on kind of the breaking down not just the postures, not into their smaller actions, but some of that too. But you hear a lot about what are the building blocks of the poses. And as you know, in our approach, rather than worrying about different movements and actions necessarily being the core things, we often try to get to sensations. And so the core sensations that we often try to draw attention to are grounding, balance, expansion, and rhythm, right? Those are building blocks. But even a step back from that, right? The last couple weeks, I don't know if you've been in the classes, but I've been kind of out there. One class was more about, well, a couple classes. I've been really focusing on the bones, right? I've also been really focusing on the skin, right? And if you remember, like one of my more favorite lines, I think it was last week, but it might have been 2 weeks ago. I'm confused on which was which. I don't know if you remember, like I'm kind of curious, if we had more time, I'd go, what does anyone remember about any insight that they took about the bones from the last few weeks? So just for a moment, just like in your own case, like, did you learn anything about bones, or did you like have a different kind of glimpse into the potential of bones in the last couple of weeks? And so like one of the lines that I like is that they don't initiate, bones distribute, but they're not passive. I read that out of my book, right? But bones aren't passive, they distribute. They don't initiate, but they're more efficient deliverers. They deliver prana better than your muscles, ligaments, and tendons, right? Right. So there's that, right? And so then I talked about the skin, right? So skin and bones. It's like we hear that phrase tossed around a lot. And so there, we did more, been doing more about the skin. And last week, one of the lines I liked was, your skin always holds vigil with the outside world, right? It's the place that directly interacts, even when you're sleeping, right? If anything's coming in, you're sweating things out and things are coming in, and it never wavers in its job, right? And then I said some things like Bika Sengar says, all knowledge comes through the skin. Intelligence enters poses through the skin, right? An effort, one of the principles of our approach is that, an effortless alignment is an effortless form of mind-body integration, especially when the bones line up, right? Something gets opened. So skin and bones, and what's the other one? This class maybe will be a little bit more about breath, right? Skin, bones, and breath. So one of the things that I've been trying to get across to you by focusing on skin and bones is that that's kind of some of the building blocks of being in a body and being here, right? Even before any posture, even before any part of a posture, right? You got some skin, you got some bones, and you got some breath, and you got these things that help the interaction. Like, so the breath gets to the muscles and the bones and all of it through some fluid that has a lot of water and it's blood. So the breath takes in oxygen from the outside world, right? And actually, you have this amazing mechanism that's going on that somehow gets it into through the heart and into the blood, and it goes into each thing, and then the body takes it, and I don't know, maybe your tissue breathes in the blood. I have no idea how you might say it gets saturated by the blood and somehow takes the oxygen, and all of a sudden it releases the blood, but it changes the color of the blood, right? So it goes from more brighter red to actually more darker blue because it took the oxygen out of it. And so then it goes back and all to repeat again and get pushed out again, right? So there's an intermediary that includes a different element of water and some other things, obviously in the water. And it turns out that the red blood cells that help the oxygen, the platelets, are actually made by the bones. Like, what the hell? How are the bones in there? They seem like hard pieces of wood, but they're actually at the center of them are making all the things that actually make it all possible. So like there's this an amazing exchange of wonder that's going on, right? And one of the things I've been trying to point out, right? And then the muscles interact with the bones, and what I was trying to get across last week is the muscles try to go, or maybe 2 weeks ago, have to go in service of the bones because the bones deliver the prana better. And I mean, has anyone noticed there's been a lot going on in the last couple of classes, right? And it's like there's been a lot trying to be about the wonder of the exchange, right? So one of the things I've been trying to point out is what's interesting about the bones, right? Is that you don't get to directly control your bones. They deliver the life force, if that makes sense to you. They deliver the life force more directly into the world and connect you more to the earth than the muscles and the flesh and all these things, right? And somehow the muscles go in service of the bone in order to get the openness that allows for a more expansive breath, right? The skin, if B.K. Sengar says things like intelligence enters the poses through the skin, right? You got the other thing I like think about the skin, not just that it holds vigil, it's every skin pore is looking outward to the world, right? So everything that passes through actually goes out. So just for a second, feel the air on your skin wherever you can and think about that as like a form of vision going out, right? Right. But the thing about the skin is the skin can also look inward. You have like fascia and stuff on the inside of your body. So the skin actually is a two-way street. So it goes in and out. You've got the bones, and then yoga, one of the other building blocks of yoga of asana is going to be that your spine really matters. And it turns out that the air, the oxygen, when you take an inhalation and the lungs expand and take in something from the outside, it pushes into the fingers of the spine and the spine of the ribs, and that delivers it to the spine, and you can go up and down and move, right? I could go on all day. It's freaking miraculous what's actually occurring, right? And so the breath somehow touches both the world that you can't directly control, gets a sense of expansion, and it actually feeds what's tangible. So one of the things that's amazing about breath is that it's the only fundamental body process, not the only one, but that we both have some voluntary control over and are involuntarily. The breath will continue even when you're not thinking about it. But in a way, so are the bones. You can control them, but you can't quite control them, but you want to receive them, right? The muscles need to go in service of the bone and still get fed by the breath. So the muscle ends up, and the space between the muscle and the bone, which is what I did last week and talked a lot about, if you remember, I think last week, right? Was that the space between the muscle and the bone and how the muscle goes towards the bone, right? That space between what we can directly control our muscles and what we can't control as much as our bones represents a really important potential energy in asana, right? But I think following Rumi, right? You're not just a drop in the ocean, you're an entire ocean in a drop. And right there between what we can control and what we can't control, we have a core existential issue that human beings fail at. We tend to close that space too hard and squeeze too hard, creating destruction, wearing yourself out, right? If you don't act, nothing happens. You also go and, lethargy takes hand. So how you close this space? When we're doing asana, we're touching a core existential issue. What's great about asana is you don't have to think about the existential issue. You just try to work on your poses. That's what I love about asana. You're touching everything, right? All right. Skin, bones, and breath. And so turns out that if you try to, you can try to close the space between the muscle and the bone. You can try to kind of open it and let there be space, which is part of why we like to jiggle, right? Part of why, like, there's some things that happen that actually open things up. And then in a way that also gets the blood flowing, because the blood flowing kind of opens that sense of space. There's some stuff going on that we know that are built into asana, right? That how do you, but it turns out that the breath opens that space too. So just notice, right? Your breath is going to take something in from the outside. It's going to come into the inside. Literally, the volume of what you are is going to slightly increase. Everything's going to expand a little bit. It's going to open. So like on a twist, inhale, lift up. We're not going to do a twist or not, but inhale, you expand. Exhale, I keep telling you, you come back to the spine on exhalation and lengthen your spine, right? So the breath is actually creating an expansion, opening the space, touching the spaces you don't get to control as much, and then allowing you to take that potential and move it into action. The breath's pretty magical. That's why so many yoga systems think it's fundamental, and certainly it is, but nothing's fundamental, right? There's just what we do. Prana is like an end in itself. So sit up straight and tall. So it turns out to appreciate all this shit, you need not to hold too much in your mind thinking. You have to allow more. There is so much here that your mind actually has to settle down. Your brain has to soften in order to receive even a fraction more of what's happening here. Mind's always going to try to narrow the world. That's how it gets control, right? So feel your feet on the floor, your bones in your sitting bones. Come a little bit more on the edge of your chair, like make your bones a little bit more like knives rather than like butter. And watch what it does to your chest. And if you've been doing this long enough, you'll realize when you make your bones a little bit more like knives, awareness goes down towards the heels. And now you've got the tent peg. So when the breath does an expansion, right? Prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. If I can not just push my mind to my heels, my sitting bones, and watching my breath, right? If I can get my mind aware and set the tent pegs, then the breath is going to connect all the space, all the places together. So you're not pushing your breath only to feel your whole body. You're letting the consciousness that comes from a quieter place to get lit by the breath. There are a lot of ways to try to, you can do it just the opposite too, but we're doing it that way. So you're feeling your feet, your sitting bones, you're lifting your chest. And then the yogis are going to tell you, one of the building blocks is the energy that goes through your midline. First, pay attention to your spine. Don't forget to feel your skin. Your skin's looking out and looking in. Your rib cage is expanding, the eyeballs are opening, and it's still looking at the lungs itself. And then exhale and lengthen your spine. So there's this rhythm, expansion, extension. Inside of the mouth soft, skin on your forehead, temples open. Live here now. in what you don't control and what you do control, which is the perpetual state of the human condition. Don't let it make your mind afraid. It keeps you alive. Good. And then come on back. So let's try to open, we'll open a little bit again, like we always do, move around, but we're having the idea or trying to allow that moving around is opening the space, the quiet, uncontrollable space that the breath is able to touch. Right? So take your legs wide, for example, start opening some. And, I hope you actually do the things I ask you to do. You don't just listen to them. What's also wild about breathing is not only is your skin breathing, I said that last week, I'm pretty sure. Your skin is breathing outward, right? It turns out that your skin is facing outward, but you're also in breathing, in pranayama, you're also trying to connect your inner ears, right? So I'm moving around, right? And I'm getting space open, and I'm letting my inhalation and exhalation touch the opening space, and the movement of my body is like opening a window. So when the breath comes in, when the air comes in, right, it can touch and refresh, right? But what's interesting about all this is that to kind of hear this level even better, I need to go inward and, quote, connect my inner ears. What does that even mean? Well, start practicing weird shit and you'll figure it out, right? As Patabi Joy says, practice and all things come. Because Iyengar talks about that space, the connection between the inner ears is the art of silence. So sit still for a second, keep the teeth slightly apart, and try to, whatever you can get in terms of like connecting the inner ears. Like I could tell you to let there be a cavern right through the center of your head, going in each direction, right? I don't know, right? And notice if you drop your chest, your inner ears actually don't connect as well. There's a whole bunch of things you can kind of figure out here. If you over try to lift your chest, too much will screws it up too. Notice when you try to hear your inner ears, it's harder to keep your eyes open. When you try to connect your inner ears, you want to naturally close your eyes. Yeah. Turns out there's an inside and outside of every yoga pose at all times. All times. I find, I don't know if this is right, but my experience is when I connect my inner ears, I can kind of hear my bones better. It's not just my breath. I kind of need, I would say somehow connecting my inner ears and my bones and the quiet ceasing part of my experience, the moon part of my experience are somehow more clustered together. I don't know, right? And I'm going to lean over to one side and I'm going to try to be more aware of my midline in order to find my midline, right? As I move, find my spine, it's going to help if I connect my inner ears just a little bit. If I let that hollow cavern, right? But remember, I'm doing all this going inward and I'm still trying to feel my skin. So I'm trying to, and don't forget, like the bones are at the midline. One of the lines I think I read was if, there's a party of consciousness and it tends to happen at the midline, and bones are the first to arrive. So I'm going back and forth and I'm creating a dynamic feeling in my spine, right? Because I'm going to want my spine to get fed by my breath awareness. But remember, I'm trying to get the feeling that my breath is touching the spaces that exist between the muscles and the bones and the skin and the flesh, right? Because, by the way, that's what's already happening. That's what blood flow does, right? And I think it's Stephanie's got her arm up and she's opening her arm, so she's wanting to move more, right? Right. Or Sophie, that's Sophie, by the way. And then this way, right? And so you're just making more space because you want to open the spaces so the air, which is actually when we're lucky enough to be able to direct air, right? Making it be kind of like a wind or a gust. That's what inhalation and exhalation is. But you want to open the spaces, right? So I'm trying to make sure, and now I want to be lighter because I don't want my breath to only feed my bones, right? I want to be a little lighter. So I'm lifting up again and putting my spine in traction and maybe like making sure I keep now, in order to keep my bones in the midline, I'm going to have to listen with my connecting my inner ears as I'm moving, right? I'm going to go up and over the back of my chair because I know my breath's going to go better when my chest is lifted some and spread. I want to be, and then I'm going to lean forward. I want to be a good vessel for the breath, right? I want that for sure. I want to honor what's out here and coming through me, right? And have the honor not just be a thought, right? I want my whole body to honor what's happening, right? To be open as you come back with a back bend a little bit over the back of your chair, broaden under the collarbones, right? Open the more interior space between your shoulder blades to get there without too much will. You're going to have to listen, not just have your eyes of your skin facing outward, right? Come back. We've been doing this a lot. Come back, put your hands on the elbows on the table or on your knees, and bones, skin, bones, 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 skin, skin, skin. Open your chest. So you got a little microcosm. Remember, even it's not just that you're a drop in the ocean, an entire ocean a drop. Every little part of your pose is a entire ocean in a drop. So here comes the bones in my hands. I'm bringing the bones together, and then I'm opening the skin, like I'm spreading the palm, like my eyeballs are opening. And as that happens, the bones come together even more and the skin, and I'm trying to like feel that in the center of my chest and let the expansion of my palms connect to the expansion of my soles of my feet. And the breath gets to touch it all. The breath was touching it all through blood flow. Can I ride along the happening? Can I be such an observer to ride the happening and celebrate my aliveness and not just be an observer through deadness? I think you can. I think that's what the yogis are trying to pass. There's a way to do both energies at the same time. And then release. We're going to do a little bit more again. But remember, this whole type of, when we're doing a little bit of dog pose, we're doing it in a way that we know we're preparing for more of the fact that breath touches everything. So the last couple weeks, I've been trying to get you to like practice bringing that there's technique to bring the muscle to the bone, right? And so the way I contrasted it last week, I think last week, is I had you just push down on the table too hard and then show you what happens and how you disconnect from the universe. Or if you start using some technique about how to bring the muscle to the bones, like pressing down to the index finger and rotating the inner upper arm up and dropping the shoulder blades and spreading it, when you start to actually get the muscle to go more gracefully towards the bone, you feel more of your body. You don't choose to feel more of your body, it just happens. Because there was potential in the space between the muscle and the bone. Good, and then release. Now, I don't want you to do this because we're heading towards to a pranayama practice or more breathing. But if you were to do the same actions of the arms that can light the whole body, if you were to do them too hard, if you were to squeeze the muscles too hard, you would not breathe as well. Right? So it's not all systems firing ahead when you use your muscles. Right? You want to find the balance of where there's integrity of the muscle going to the bone, but it's lighting up the empty spaces and the interior dimension of your whole body. And so your breath can actually touch the empty spaces. So find, and on this dog pose, I want you to err on the side of being more gentle, disciplined, but gentle, right? Because you want your breath then to travel up and down your spine to help you feel your legs. Maybe you're doing, if you know what Ujayi breath is, you want a little bit of vibration to actually vibrate through the empty space. Right, good. And then release. If you Ujayi breath is like, yeah, at the place kind of where you might have post-nasal drip, there's a little bit of a, I'll do it extra loud. Right? That's too much strain. But there's that little bit of vibration that keeps you company in Ujayi breath, right? Which helps you reverberate into the empty spaces. It's like a little crutch for your mind to actually believe that it's touching the empty spaces, because minds are incredulous without proof, right? And the truth is, most of the expanse of the universe is unprovable. That's the truth of it, right? And you get to experience this stuff in an asana. So you're back to this more disciplined, softening version of dog pose, getting the muscle to go towards the bone, lifting the chest, taking a breath. And if you want that little bit of vibration, it's really easy to overdo the vibration, right? Because you think you got power when you do it. You don't have power. You're a receiver. Feels good to have some power. If you want to make it a little louder now, go ahead. And your mind gets to go, oh yeah, but then go back to the softer and know the grace is when you don't try to be powerful. The flow of it, the union of it. Awareness, deepening awareness is not for power. It's for an end in itself. All right. Lighten up again, up and down, all around. Start doing like, and then let there be even a more slinky rhythm. When I get too into like just paying sole attention to the breath, I forget that there's rhythm to everything, right? There's like, yeah, wait, it's a slinky too. It's not all funky and serious and focused. It's got this other dimension to it, right? Because your skin is looking at the world in all directions, right? All directions. Your bones deliver what your muscles, how they act on them. Your muscles get leverage and traction because they get to act against bones. And your breath somehow mediates all of it, right? Oh, I think it's too bad when people don't also not just explore their breath, but they don't explore how the body breathes without the movement of the lungs and stuff. So I'm turning a little bit, getting a little bit more of a twist in here. All this is preparation, right? To get more of me here, right? Because if I want to just go into the ceasing, one of the things that's so scary, and well, scary is too strong of a word, but hard, confrontive, about breath awareness when it's really stripped down to pure breath is that you get more directly into the ceasing, right? Everything's stripped away. But I want to bring my whole body into a focused breathing practice, especially on a Monday morning. So I'm leaning forward on my forearms, and I'm doing just like no one but the universe is gonna know. I'm just doing a little bit of a back bend. I'm trying to remember that in the ceasing, I am still alive, right? Everything's still moving. The breath guarantees movement, right? It's just the mind has a harder time receiving the ceasing, right? So it needs everything still. But don't forget it's your body that breathes, not your mind, right? Your body breathes, right? So now, remember, I'm thinking that the breath, trying to get you across that the breath mediates and can touch the empty spaces, which are less controllable, and the spaces you do control. So as you sit here and kind of center and quiet, lips together, teeth slightly apart, trying to let your brain go into neutral. Your brain needs to be passive so your mind can quiet down. So one way is to do that, and I'm looking at Sophie again, she's took off her glasses and actually, because she's doing something smart, right? So everyone take your hand if you can and put it on your frontal cortex. When you need a little help getting that frontal cortex, you've had to listen to a whole bunch of words, right? Right? You just like press a little bit on your frontal cortex. And with a calmer mind, start to feel the breath into the rib cage, right? And you feel the rib cage, but know that there's space between the ribs too, the intercostal muscles. And so you're not just breathing in the ribs, you're breathing to create the spaces between the ribs, which actually gets you in more connection to your diaphragm. And your connection to your diaphragm helps you feel the intercostal muscles between your ribs. And all this opens the door to the vastness of your entire body. And even as you have to go inward to feel this, trust that your skin holds vigil with the outside world. You're breathing inward to be part of outward. And there's a balance between inward and outward. All right, and then come back. And so I'm going to open my eyes, but you might not want to. I have to go back to something. I have to look at all of you, right? But when I close down my frontal cortex, the light comes in like a freaking spotlight, right? All right, so now I want to prepare the vessel, because remember, I'm trying to allow that my breath can touch both worlds. So my feet are on the floor. I'm going to go through a little symmetry practice. Both feet are on the floor, mine are on the foot pedals. Both sitting bones. Both shoulder tips. The empty space between the ear and the shoulder. The empty space behind me. Feeling the structure of my body. Allowing that I'm grounded in my bones and my skin touches everything outside of me. Now, awareness of the breath in each nostril. It fills each lung. Remember, prana follows conscious more than it follows breath. So stay connected to your each sitting bone and each foot. Leave space for the opening of the rib cage and the direction of energy right into your spine. Let there be empty space between your ribs. Feel your diaphragm. All this was already happening. Can your mind participate and be part of the happening? Can it allow the ceasing to be a calming? Breath goes in, breath goes out. And then release. So what's interesting about pranayama techniques, right? And I keep them really simple because I think this is such profound stuff, is that when you start to try to have a little bit more technique, you're trying to introduce the mind's presence into the river, right? That was already happening. And that's tricky because once the mind starts to get in there, the mind's clunky. It's kind of an impediment. One of the dings that I got about breathing was from Richard Freeman. And he said he thought that the translation of pranayama as breath control was not the best translation. He thought a better translation was removing the impediments to breath because it's already a natural happening. And the mind turns out to be one of the impediments. So you're trying to figure out how the mind can receive the stillness and trust the body enough to keep things moving forward. So we're introducing now the mind's a little bit more active now. So you're in, often you do shavasana before you do more breath awareness, right? But so kind of go instantaneously. Hopefully you practice enough shavasana where you can go there at a drop of just a dime, right? You just go, oh, it's right there. I know that energy. I practiced it, right? I know it. Soften the inside of the mouth, let go of the teeth, the gums. Let there just be a spark of life by lifting your chest. Let that spark go through all of the empty part of it. Your inhale is also a spark. Your exhale is a release. So from the vastness of the ceasing starts the breath. It creates more space in you. It washes out, but you remain grateful for the expansion of space. Even as the breath leaves you. Don't forget your bones. The bones keep you in the ceasing, keep you connected to the earth. Now, a more active role for the mind. On the next few breaths, keep the mouth soft, right? I want you to lengthen the length of your exhalation. So now you got this thing trying to manipulate and start to enter the happening. It's a good choice to lengthen the exhalation because it's a release, it's not an action. Try not to disturb. At the end of the next exhalation, inhale and slightly lengthen the inhalation now. Don't be a hero, just a little bit. Let it wash out. There's a good chance you've already tensed your mouth and your jaw. Little bit. Take a recovery breath. Again, this time you're lengthening the inhalation a little bit. You're letting the exhalation dissipate into the ceasing. The inhalation spark the movement again from the ceasing. Don't worry about taking a super deep breath unless it feels good. You can increase it a little bit. But we're paying more attention to the top of the inhalation and the ceasing, return to the ceasing on the bottom of exhalation. And we're trying just to let it be unknown. It's okay, it's unknown. And then take a recovery breath or two. Now, on this next one, and maybe you're already doing it because you're so used to doing it this way, let that vibration happen a little bit more. So keep yourself company. It's like whistling in the dark. So you have an extra vibration sound. Don't forget, it's not just dark, there's also a tambourine. Let the sound stabilize your exhale. But don't forget, don't get just in love with the vibration. No, your lungs are expanding. Your skin is still touching the outside world. Your bones are still keeping you steady. The breath mediates different worlds. And then allow a couple recovery breaths. And we're going to introduce just a little bit more participation of the mind. So let the exhalation go all the way out. And then on this next inhalation, when I tell you to begin, you're going to go up a third of the way on the inhalation and pause and let the ceasing be more pronounced. And then you're going to breathe the next third up your body, like the next third, the middle third of your spine, and then pause and let the ceasing be more present. And then inhale the last third of your upper lungs, right? And then you can let it wash all out. Okay, so let the breath all the way out. Remember, the skin is touching the world. From the end of the exhalation, the ceasing, inhale up a third, allow the truth. Inhale again, the next third, allow the truth. Inhale again up to the collarbones. And then let it wash all the way out. One more. Inhale up a third. Allow the ceasing to be more apparent. Another third. Another third up to the collarbones. All the way out. There's a really good chance that you tense the inside of your mouth when you're doing that. So on these recovery breaths, lips together, teeth slightly apart. The ceasing is your ally. It's an energy source. Your breath opens it, moves it, returns it to the universe. Your body receives. Your skin touches the rest of the world. Your bones keep you connected to the earth. What's not to be in love with? Time for Shavasana. Let it all out. So when you just let yourself be supported by your surroundings, you're not trying to pay extra attention to your breath. You're just trying to let in the chair. Instead of a river that has the wind in it, you're trying to be a pond that's being held up and cupped by the earth. There's a hum that's hearable if you connect the inner ears. If you let the empty space in your body hum. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. It's the miracle. It brings life to the ceasing. Gradually increase your breath. Start to bring yourself back. When you're ready, open your eyes, come back to the light, close them if you need to. Open them again. Skin, bones, breath, some water, you know, some things, spine, a miracle, all before you got up, all the time when you were sleeping, the entire time. Holy cow. It's amazing how I lose track of that as I go through the demands of my day. But I'm really grateful I get to touch you once in a while. I'm really glad there's a tambourine playing the whole time. It's waiting for me to hear it, waiting for me to know. I'm perpetually invited. It never closes the door on you, ever. Quite a gift. All right, everybody, hands together. Namaste. The spirit in me bows to the spirit in you.